All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Critical Conversations. I am here today with Morgan Lewis. She's back yet again. We had a powerful conversation. I don't know. I think it was maybe around 3 months ago, and I loved it so much. We've been trying to connect, and we're finally here. We're super excited to share with you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about calling your power back, holding on to your power, getting more curious about your own medical journey. And I'm really excited. It's a hot topic for my clients, and Morgan has some fun things coming up. So Morgan, I'm going to toss it over to you to give yourself a quick intro to the audience again, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Yes. And first and foremost, if you did not listen to our first episode, I highly recommend it. I think it was one of my favorite podcasts, and I've done quite a few. And it was funny because neither of us prepped. We're like, let's just have an authentic conversation. And it was so good. But for those who don't know me, I am an integrative practitioner. I focus on gut and hormone health, and I take a holistic approach. I help my clients heal chronic gut issues.
Yeah, which is so important. We had such a fun conversation, and we talked a lot about, diet and culture. And today we're going to dive into this power dynamic. So Morgan, you brought this topic to the table. Tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing in your work with people.
Yeah. So if you think about someone who's dealing with health issues, right, and they go to a doctor and then they go to a specialist and they're bouncing around, there becomes this narrative of, I don't have the capability to heal my body. I need to find an external person to tell me what to do. Maybe there's some level of being gaslit. Maybe there's some level of being told you're fine despite having symptoms. And then it becomes this whole cascade of confusion, health anxiety, WTF do I do to get better, and then helplessness. And the biggest thing that I've been seeing is that people don't believe they have the capability to heal, and they don't believe they have the tools to be able to heal. And the irony of this whole situation is that the most beneficial things for our health are free. Breathing, meditation, being in the sun, being in nature, drinking filtered water, right? Like those are all like very relatively free, if not free, things that we can do. Sleep, things like this. And somewhere along the narrative, we've become so conditioned to listen to people outside of ourselves for how to heal. And it's something I've been really focused on with my clients because I'm having to have this conversation with people who just can't get better. And openly, I'll ask them, do you believe you can heal? And the times that I've asked this, I've had silence on the other end. And it's been so jaw-dropping because I too was in that, fight or flight, anxious. Am I ever going to get better? Maybe this doctor will have the answer. Maybe that person will have the answer. But until you step into your power, you'll never be able to heal because no one else has the answers beside for you.
Wow. Mic drop. Do you believe you can heal? Do you believe you can heal? What's the response that you're getting from people? Like, are they, silence, but then I think that we all have beliefs that we have to overcome. So what's the next thing that they say?
Yeah, I've had a few different ways that the conversation has panned out. Most of the time people say, I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, well, if you don't believe you can heal, how do you expect these miraculous changes to happen in your body if you're not calling that change in, right? Like there is some level of conversation between ourselves and our mantras and our affirmations and our belief systems that it's all tied together, right? And, just as humans, we do revert to the negative. That's something we've seen. And it's this conversation of, well, what if it all goes well? What if it's better than you think? And what if it works faster than you believe? And what if you can do this in a quicker period of time than you thought you had to be dealing with symptoms? And it becomes this, whoa, you're right. What if it does? And it's definitely a mindset shift, for thinking that because just human nature. We resort to the negative. We think the worst. And when you're sick, it's hard to be positive too, because you have that physical presentation that also is like a down regulation of self and feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I love this topic. I'm freaking out on the inside. I'm so happy that you brought this to the table. I think it's such an important thing. I just recently onboarded a new client, and it's like exactly what you're saying. It's like they never thought of it that way. There's a huge mindset shift that needs to happen. I'm doing this mostly with people in their businesses, right? So it's like you have to somehow get out of your own way to see the other perspective. And that is the mindset shift. And this is, I think, the power of working with somebody who believes in you. So I want to talk about this like belief thing. I feel like you brought this up on the last podcast episode, but correct me if I'm wrong. You were talking, I believe, about some of the concepts that Gay Hendricks has in The Big Leap, where, really being in your zone of genius, really being, in your power and understanding that you have more control. And if I'm wrong here, have you read The Big Leap? Am I wrong? Am I thinking of somebody else?
No, you're thinking of someone else, but I know what you're
Okay.
talking about,
Yeah.
and I know the concept. So yeah, we can keep rolling with
Okay.
it.
So, but basically what he's talking about is like, you have to believe in yourself. And if you can be in that zone of genius, right? So it's like finding the place where you can believe in yourself. But I think so much of us, to your point of, it's easy to cling to the negative and it's easy to stay in those cycles. That's where that big mindset shift comes from. How do we get there though? Like, I think that's the thing that most people, they get stuck because you can't get there from here, right?
Yeah, and I think too, like the negative is comforting because our body and our nervous system just wants to seek comfort. And comfort can sometimes be the thing that you don't physically need, but it could be the easiest default because it's repetitive. It's, you know exactly what to expect. Like, say you go into a bad job every day that you hate, it takes so much work and discomfort to put yourself out there, to apply for a new job, to have those interviews. That's uncomfortable. Selling yourself is uncomfortable. But on the outside, and the end goal, you're going to be so much happier once you do have a job that lights you up, that you're engaged with. And I know that you do this with careers, and it's the same thing with health, because what happens is if you resort to the comfort, it's temporary relief, but then the symptoms are still there, right? So it's like, oh, I eat this way, I'm still bloated, I don't feel well. Well, let's shake that up because apparently that's not working for you. And then, after we change that, it's a reminder of, oh, yeah, that was actually really hard. I had to talk to myself and decide not to eat that processed food and honor my body with the real food. But wow, I actually don't feel like I'm going to fall asleep after eating. And my stomach feels really good. And I didn't even notice that I was bloated this meal. Cool.
Yeah.
And so it's like that tactile cue that keeps you going. And so until you have like an actual cue and outcome, I think it's really hard. That whole book, Atomic Habits, talks about how do you change a habit, right? It needs to be easy. We need to have big, little wins that amount to little wins that amount to big wins in the end, so you can track the progress. And so at first, like, I don't have these conversations with clients in the first or second month, maybe not even the third or fourth. But when we get to the fifth or sixth, when we're nearing towards the end of it, that's when I'm like, if they're not where they should be, where I think mentally they should be in their healing, that's when we have to dig deeper and kind of unpack that self-sabotage and think about, like, do they even like know what life could be like if they get healthy and are on the other side of this and break up with that diagnosis that they've been carrying around like a backpack for years.
Yeah. Well, it's to your point. It's known, like, and I talk about this all the time. I mean, I love this so much. This is exactly what I was talking with this client last week. And it was our second call. And it's like, stop thinking so big and drastic. It's small, chewable, stackable habits that compound over time. I think one of the things that is overwhelming when people are looking to transform, it feels like you have to do this giant, quick, big 180. When really, what is it? And this is like one thing that I struggle with sometimes in the coaching, or well-being industry is like, it has to make sense for your client, and it has to be something that they can feel a shift with, and then it's like compounds over time. It's sustainable, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you know this too, like you can't just have this crash diet. It's not sustainable. You'll go backwards 3 months, you'll feel great for 3 months, and then you'll crash, and then boom, you're back in the same spot, right? You gain the weight back, you lost all your habits, whatever happens. And so what are you looking at when you're looking at building you mentioned it in
Yeah.
Atomic Habits, right? What are you suggesting to your people? Like, what are the small, tiny little things that people can compound?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I've kind of started to develop a roadmap that I've seen because after working with clients for maybe almost 4 years now at this point in a one-on-one capacity, like I have just seen that the starting place really is the same. And let's be honest, like you can't out supplement a bad diet, right? So
Yeah.
it's always nutrition. And I think nutrition gives the biggest bang for the buck at the beginning. And that's where we're seeing, right, the before after. Oh, I want to keep going. Let's see where I can get. Of course, supplements are really helpful, especially if there's a lot of dysfunction. But if you're not eating healthy, what do the supplements help with?
Yeah.
And it's just expensive poop, honestly. But yeah, so nutrition huge. Eating balanced meals, choosing real foods, right? Like changing how you grocery shop. Things without labels, things without packages, filling up 80 to 90% of the food on the perimeters, which really is that whole food, unprocessed real ingredients, and then weaving through the aisles and adding some other things in that you need. That's like the biggest number one. And stress, like if
Yeah.
we can't even acknowledge the stress, then we need to start there and look at the day and say, okay, I'm doing really well until 3 p.m. and I have this recurring meeting every Wednesday. Maybe I need to prep myself for how I enter the situation because it's completely derailing my day. Then I get all wound up. I don't have time to cook dinner. I self-sabotage myself because I didn't do one thing. Then it leads to the thought process of, oh, if I didn't do that one thing, screw everything else, right? That whole like tumbleweed. And so it's like figuring out those instances, like, do you wake up rushed in the morning and then your whole day is chaotic because you don't have enough time to get yourself together? And then that's a question of how's your nighttime routine, right? So it's like
Yeah.
unpacking all of these behaviors that, as you said, stack and lead to a better day starting the night before.
Yeah. I mean, shit, man. I started in personal development in 2019, right? I was rock bottom, and I tried to like implement all these things at once. I was like, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
now a meditator. I'm now going to yoga every day. I'm now only eating whole healthy foods. I'm now only having positive thoughts. And like it's not sustainable. And so I think that people feel overwhelmed to do it because I think there's an ethical practice, right? And this is why I think you and I jive so well, is because it's unethical for us as professionals to say, well, here, just go change your whole freaking routine in life. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
what's one thing we can implement this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I started with this client that I onboarded, right? So it's like she wanted to dive in and she was like, I'm going to do all these things, and I was like, no, don't. It will not be successful. This is a
Mm-hmm.
long-term thing. Like transformation, I want you to feel better all the way through the rest of your life. So what's one small thing we can implement this week? And then next week.
Yeah. And I
And then
love this because you're like, and I only think positive thoughts now, right? We've all had that. Like, I'm just going to be positive. An hour later, you're like, what the hell? Um,
yeah.
yeah, but no, it's true. And I think a lot of times you have to come back. Like, I will remind my clients, I'm like, we've been seeing each other for 10 months. You have 10 protocols from me. Go back to the ones that we did the first, third, fourth, fifth month. What have you forgotten about? Like now that you've built this routine, like pull things back in that felt good and
Yeah.
see what you like because it's so individual, right? And I think too, a part of it is like, we jive and we love to have these honest conversations, but not every person jives with their coach, their practitioner, their therapist, right? Your doctor. Like you can fire your coach. You can fire your doctor. Like, if they aren't giving you what you need, screw that. Like, be an advocate for yourself. And if that person isn't getting you to where you want to go, like, you fully have the ability to stand up for yourself. Like, it's your time, it's your energy, it's your money, and it's ultimately like your vulnerability that you're bringing to the table with that coach or provider. And like, you should feel seen and heard. Like, that's something I'm so passionate about. And I think that goes back to the first conversation of like, you know how to heal. So if someone else is fear mongering you or telling you you can't do this or making things seem out of reach, like, nope, we're out of here. Like, we're
Wrong
rerouting.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to the thing that we started with, which is the power. So what you're saying is people have the power of choice. People have the power to choose the way that will work for them and the thing that will help them heal. I mean, this is like one of my other clients. She's like, you're my favorite coach because you tell me to try something. I tell you it didn't work for me and we move on. And there's no like guilt. You don't make me like dissect why it didn't work. It's like totally fine that it didn't work. We just move on to the next modality. So when you're looking at your clients and you're individualizing their healing path, Morgan, what's your approach for like, okay, we tried this supplement, it didn't work. Okay, we tried this diet, or like how is that process for you?
Oh, yeah, it's always evolving. I mean, look, everyone's so individual and everyone has a very different work life circumstance, which is always just going to be, I can't expect someone who commutes and works a 9 to 5 to meal prep. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's not going to work. So it's meeting that person where they're at. And there's been so many times where I've been honest with clients and I'm like, hey, I use this probiotic with a lot of people. It might cause you to be gassy or something. Like, let me know. Like, we'll change it. We'll adjust the dose. We'll change the timing. We'll change products if we need, right? Because every person has a different capacity for what their body can tolerate. And sometimes the reality is just trial and error, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this for a second. I think this was you posted on social media something. I mean, you post a lot of great content. If you guys aren't following Morgan, she's a very fun person to follow.
Thank you.
But you posted, I don't know if it was your reel or somebody else's reel, but it was like the basic concept was you can't just look at a fad and be like, I'm going to try it on and this will be the thing. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think sometimes, especially with social media, with ads and all the campaigning that's happening on there, it's like you see this supplement or you see this thing, like, here's your matcha and this matcha is going to change your life. Like, talk to us about this because I think that you are the queen of like, no, don't just do that.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. I try to be very authentic on social, and I really, people are always telling me, like, you can monetize this, you can monetize that. That's really not my goal. Like, my goal is to share info. My goal is to connect with people, help people, send resources, and occasionally post products I have used, vetted, and personally enjoy, right? I'm so sick of people listening to influencers to take this debloat supplement, this powder, this protein powder, this. Oh my God. Honestly, please stop. If you're spending money on that, I posted something yesterday. I'm like, that is not a way to heal. It's just going to lead you in this hamster wheel. But in terms of social media, and it goes back to, right, like the small steps, it's very easy to get into a loop of comparison. I'm looking at this influencer. She's got her whole morning routine. She wakes up, she meditates, she journals, she drinks her lemon water, then she ice rolls her face, then she cold plunges, then she works out, then she walks her 10K steps, and then she eats a 40-gram protein breakfast. And it's like all done by 8 a.m. Bullshit. No one's doing that. They're probably posting old pictures. If they're doing it, it's the 1 or 2 good days of the week that it's happening, and they're posting it on social because it's holding them accountable. And if you are that person, good for you. I mean, touche. I've never met anyone who could do all that before 8 a.m. But, there are people who wake up at 5 and do other things. So I don't know, but it doesn't work for me or my clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep it real. I mean, the term Instagram versus reality is it's so important. And I feel like everything needs to be looked at through rose-colored glasses, because if you're having a breakdown and have a lot of anxiety, like, you're not posting about that. You're
Yeah.
posting your matcha latte and a mirror pic because you think you look good in your outfit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, you did an event and you posted the same day, the same picture, like same like situation, different angles. And you were like,
Yeah.
Instagram's not real. And I was like, and that's why we love Morgan.
Yeah, I'm
Because
like, oh my God, that was insane.
yeah, it's crazy. But I think like this is the misconception, and we give our power away to these other dynamics. And then we also are looking for that quick fix. So really what we're talking about is there's no quick fix. There's no
Mm-mm.
Amazon supplement that is going to
No.
save your life.
Yeah, and don't order supplements from Amazon because a lot of them are counterfeit. So there's a full script on my Instagram if you do find me there. But yeah, I mean, look, like thinking about that reel that I posted, and it's crazy because I'm still getting likes from it like weeks later. I posted 4 pictures of me in the same outfit within 3 hours, as you said, different angles, different lighting. I look like I gained and lost like 15 pounds in the day. I've had 2 comments that were like, I don't see a difference. I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, that had me cracking up. I'm like, all right. But yeah, I mean, look, like someone said something to me the other day. When you go to take a sunset picture and then you take it and you're like, oh, this looks horrible. It looks so much better in person.
Yeah.
That's like exactly what we need to remember,
Yep.
right? And that's the same with anything about your life, your health, right? Like it's hard to put it on a screen. It's hard to quantify it. Like you'll know when you feel good, but like to have to show that through a screen, it's not really possible. You can't
No.
quantify that. And it's like, it's distortion. It's not the same. And I think about that. I'm like, oh my God, I look like that? What the hell is that picture? I'm like, oh my God, like this isn't even real. Like this is not reality.
Right. Well, 100%. And I think it's just all about when you feel like this is the mindset shift. When you feel helpless, when you don't feel good in your body, I don't care what your life goals are. You are numb to the reality that you have power, that you have choice, and that you have control. And this is the thing that I'm hoping people will walk away with this conversation is understanding that if you're feeling not good, there is a way to feel good. And it can be sustainable and it can be approachable. It can be affordable. It's just about getting curious about what's the right thing for you. And
Yeah.
there is no one size fit all. Like this is the thing about habits and stacking. What worked for one client of mine will not work for another client of mine. Just to your point, like I don't know anybody. Like I'm a manifesting generator. I can get a lot of shit done in one day. And sometimes I blow my own mind. I'm like, wow, how did I do all of that? But it is like one day, right? Then the rest of the week is usually like, what happened? Where'd the day go? I didn't get anything done. And so I think it's like we have to take off the filter by choice. We have to choose to take off the filter of what we are choosing to perceive the world as.
Yeah.
So you can choose to see the world as I'm always sick. I never feel good. I never can make money. I'm not happy in my life and career. I'm just going to work until I retire and then I'll die or you can take off that filter and you can be like, okay, I want my power back. What do I want my life to be like? And that's really what you're talking about when you're looking at the whole health. Right?
Yeah. And like wanting to feel better. And then the second part is like believing that you can and that you have the tools to get there. Maybe you need guidance and don't, mix up the fact that, right, like you still might need guidance to learn, but the application is on you and you have the tools to do that, know?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've had the same people, interviews or client calls or whatever you want to call them, where they're like, are you going to change my life? And it's like, nope, I'm going to show you a path, but you have to take the steps and I will walk that path with you for X amount of time. But ultimately, like the transformation is on you because you have the power. I don't have your power. You have your power.
Yeah.
but we're giving it away all the time, right? So tell me about when you are individualizing, how do you get to know your clients? Because I think this is where the work that you do, it's vulnerable and people have to
Yeah.
really share some nitty-gritty, dirty details.
Yeah. So my first call is a 70-minute intake. I find that that's like more than triple the amount of time people have ever even spent with their providers, unless they go to like a concierge doctor and know their provider very well. My intake forms, I have six. One is general, like from everything to their life, their health history, their symptoms, their family, trauma, um, dieting in the past. Have they ever prescribed to, certain diets and believe that that's the way to eat? Do they use a water filter, right? Like it's a million questions. And it's good because it gives me a lot of insight. And then we do a bit more. I do a specific digestive health one, a specific thyroid one, a food journal, and then yeah, a few other like random just things for me to screen. From there, I have a lot of data, and then if there's any labs or anything that person has, they can absolutely send it to me. I interpret blood work and other testing. So we have that initial call, and then from there we make a game plan, like which testing we want to do, what do we need to look at. We're always working on diet and nutrition. That's absolutely the foundation of the home. You cannot build up if you do not have a solid foundation. Your house will flood, it will crack, it will collapse. It's just not possible. And
Yeah.
so that's really where we work. And then honestly, like stress management, and mental health is like second. The next step is usually a protocol, supplements to fix what's going on. And then there's this game of consistency, progressing, moving along, keeping everything stable as life ebbs and flows. And then usually after a few months, they're feeling really better, if not fully healed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I worked with one of your clients, and she raves about how approachable it was and individualized it was because she is a very fast-paced, busy person, so meal planning and all of that was a big challenge for her because of her chaotic schedule, being a realtor and being on demand, right, to do all the things. So
Yeah.
you mentioned to me earlier that you have a course coming up. I want to touch on this before we get too far gone. And I want you to share a little bit about what this course is going to cover, because this podcast is hopefully going to come out, with time for people to join.
Yes. So as I said earlier, right, like I've been working with clients for 4 years and I really have seen a lot of patterns. And the patterns have really guided this course because I realized that A, not everyone has the funds to see me one-on-one. B, some people don't want to see me one-on-one and they just want to be able to do this on their own, which is great. More power to you. And then also, this is go at your own pace. So if you're not ready to see someone, every single month, you can pick this up, learn a little bit, make changes, right? As I said earlier, build on those small wins, see what's improving, and then come back to it. So the course is, I mean, I might be biased, but I think it's pretty fucking amazing. Basically, how it works you through is you start with intention setting on your goal of the course, and then we run through your own diagnostic testing. So you'll do a full screening of the symptoms you have, what they mean for your body, and how to fix them. From there, we don't do any work on supplements or gut. It's really a few weeks of learning. Like my whole goal is to empower the person so they know that they can heal. And I believe that comes from learning, right? Like if you don't know why you should be eating protein, then you're not going to eat the protein. Like we need to understand why we're making these changes first and foremost, point blank. So it's a lot of education. I have everything in there too. The gut, how the gut works, digestion, how stress affects it, how macronutrients affect the system, how to grocery shop, how to avoid toxins. And then I have a plethora of resources. So there's a recipe book. There's actually a hypnosis for healing and IBS from my hypnosis coach. There are, I think, over 50 documents. So stress reduction techniques. There's a full supplement guide. There is info on what supplements to take for yourself. Okay, so as I was saying, like long-term success comes from being able to reference the things that you want to build on. And so there
Yeah.
is lifetime access to it. Like whoever buys this course, I think it's going to help a lot of people. It is geared towards people with IBS, but if you are someone who has any general stomach issues from bloat, constipation, diarrhea to heartburn, there's a protocol for that. Curious about how to eat for health, for your hormones, for your stomach, how to detoxify your home. Like it is going to be a resource for all of that. So I'm really excited. I've been working on this for over a year. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of knowledge.
That's amazing. And you talk about one of the first things you mentioned was the affordability piece, right? Not everyone can afford to work one-on-one. But I also think that there's a vulnerability in working one-to-one. And I think there's a lot of people who need courses like this because it's less invasive to their well-being, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm excited for you because I do think that having these individualized courses, and again, like you said, you can go at your own pace, which I think is just like the icing on the cake there, you know, to be able to choose. But again, it's like you do have the power. There are tools and resources available. There are people who want you to genuinely feel better, and not just like monetize and get rich quick off of whatever.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I'm so excited for this course to come out. And I like how you also said, you mentioned the, you know, the, like the belief. I want to go back to that because I think, do you believe that you can heal is part of why I feel so good, because
Mm-hmm.
I was able to change a belief I had about, well, this is how life is.
Yeah.
And that's so
Yeah.
powerful. So what is it, like the number one thing that like you would want people to walk away with when we're talking about beliefs and power? What are your beliefs about those words?
Yeah. I think having the belief of challenging the negativity of like how good can it be, I think is a really radical thing to do in a society that's constantly fear mongering, right? It's like we're just like kind of scaring people into action, and I don't love that. I think
Yeah.
it's the wrong intention. That's my biggest thing. And I think secondary to that, you know, just along with the theme of the course, like you have the power and it's okay to also need a guide, right? And
Yeah.
I've gone through so many health challenges of my own that like at this point, I don't like suggest any one specific diet. I don't suggest any one specific supplement. I don't suggest any one specific thing. And that's why this course is so great, because there's so many options, because if that doesn't work, try something else. And they're
Yeah.
there, right, for you. And the biggest feedback we got was community. Like the people in the course wanted community, because I had a few people go through it as a pilot. And then they also, for the people who did want to progress on a certain timeline, they wanted a timeline. So all those issues have been fixed. Like you will be able to chat with the people through the community. I'll be popping in there answering questions. And you also have a timeline for once you're ready to take that step, like you believe you can heal, fix your gut issues, like live without pain. Now you have a resource to do it. Yeah, I think the saying, I've heard it, this rendition, you know, if you hang out with five smokers, you'll be the sixth, right? Like the first few times you'll be able to say no, but then the third, fourth, fifth, it's going to be harder.
Yeah.
And I do believe that too. You know, a lot of the work is figuring out who is going to self sabotage, who's not on your team, who's kind of scared once you become shifting into that best version of you, right? Who becomes a little threatened by it. Very interesting things. Don't have the time to dive into that complex today, but that is something to
Yeah.
keep an eye out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think too, just like having people who have been there, like having that validation of like, oh, like my stomach hurt today. Oh, I was there yesterday. Like that sucks. I'm so sorry. Right. Like just
Yeah.
having someone to listen, like that doesn't mean that's always how it's going to be, but having someone to acknowledge where you are when you're
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
it helps. It really
Yeah.
helps.
It does. I like your version better. It's much kinder.
We can also say
I love,
metabolically unhealthy.
yeah. I like it. I like it. Well, everyone, you need to go follow Morgan, Three Pillars Wellness on Instagram. She's really fun to follow. Where can they find out about your course besides Instagram, or is that going to be the best spot?
Yeah, Instagram will be a great spot. My website, tpwellness.org, short stands for Three Pillar Wellness. So that will have a bunch of info. I will be sending out newsletters once the course is live, so you can sign up via my website or my Instagram, but you will also have the ability to enroll directly from Instagram. I feel like my audience is on Instagram. Like, we're able to have more real conversations than TikTok. I feel like it's a little more negativity on that platform. So I've been sticking to Instagram, and I really like the people who have found my page and have a really nice community there.
Amazing. Well, Morgan, as always, it's such a pleasure. Half hour with you really does fly by. I think that we'll definitely have you back because, as always, there's more things to discuss. And I appreciate you. And for our audience, thank you so much. Please send in any questions you have and make sure to reach out to Morgan for getting your health and well-being under control.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. So grateful.
All right. See you. Have a great day, Morgan.